So I figured I would share a couple stories and then we can just talk about things. I've noticed that when I give talks like this, media is a really fun topic, and so people love talking back and forth about either coverage or business models of what's going on now. So my background is I tried to get out of media because you can't make a lot of money in media, and so I tried to get into tech and finance. Worked for LendingTree here, then worked for an ad agency, and then went to work for the newspaper here. And so it was pretty counterintuitive to have a digital marketing background and to go to work for a metro newspaper. But it was super fun. The Charlotte Observer here is great. But I would keep going home at night and saying to my wife, like, oh God, like I feel like tomorrow's media companies are being born right now. Am I going to be at a newspaper like hanging out for a long period of time? And it just got to be to the point, and we had a baby boy, and I think that really stressed me out too. Well, I mean, obviously that stressed you out. You have a baby, but I think it provided a sense of urgency instead of a sense of safety, because as life gets more complicated, you can do less stuff. And so decided to launch the Charlotte Agenda really because I felt like what people were talking about and the information that people found useful was not the same stories that traditional media were doing. So it just felt like there was a gap there. So put $50,000 in a bank account, had 3 other people that joined me over the course of the initial probably 6 to 9 months, and they're the most talented people in local media. Really good team. And so they contributed part of that $50,000. We burnt through cash in 2015, paying ourselves a little bit of money. And the technology and legal setup was probably $10,000. We had one revenue partner, a launch partner starting off, but then we had advertising deals kick in the end of that year, and so we've been profitable since January. But that's a little bit about like how we actually started. So it was terrifying, and I always think that that's important too, is that it sometimes that gets overlooked, and it was really hard. But one thing that I think was helpful on my end is I felt like this was an area that I knew what I was doing. I got that advice when I was younger, like do what you know. And then I didn't listen and tried to start a technology company once and failed. And so that's the main thing that I took away from starting something and failing, is that I felt like I knew this. I knew how to send a newsletter and create content and then sell stuff. And then really recruiting our core team was really important, and we got very lucky that we have 4 people that their interests don't overlap, and so it really helped to minimize drama. I think when you have a startup and you're trying to figure out, like, are we ever going to make any money? Is this all going to work? Trying to minimize internal drama was really important on our end. So that's a little bit about the startup story. What we do, for people that aren't familiar with what we do, I probably should have said that first. So we're a news site. We send out a newsletter every single morning at 6:30. We batch update a website, so we probably publish around 8-ish stories a day. And we run social accounts also. So that's a little bit about how we started. I think that's sometimes people find that interesting, sometimes they don't. Second thing I wanted to talk about was the kind of the editorial direction that we take. I think the most important thing for local media is actually to think about the business most important thing for media, really, except if you're like a BuzzFeed, you can figure out things later and you can burn through cash and things like that. But in local media, I always think it's important to figure out to know your business model first, and then think about the journalism that fits with that model. And so most people get into media because they like producing stuff instead of knowing what the financial engine is and then saying, well, what can I do to support the financial engine? So we knew we would not be a paywall site. We knew we would have very little reader revenue. That's probably something that I think we will not have for a long period of time. And we knew that we liked advertising. I like advertising. I think local advertising is stuff that people really want. And that's kind of weird to think about. National advertising, you don't really want that much, but you kind of want to hear, like, if you get a free appetizer at a restaurant. Like, that's a good piece of content for somebody, but it's just not that cool. You don't win, like, journalism awards for that. So we thought that advertising, we liked an ad-based model and one that you run lean. So that's so starting off with that business model. Our business model right now is we try to run as few sponsorships as possible. So we have roughly 25 partners. We'll try to cap it at 25. And we think of our sponsorships like you would do a deal with the Panthers, where it's like heavily integrated. They're all kind of custom and weird. So that's the way we think about our sponsorships. So we actually don't want to work with a lot of people because that's a painful model, and like the transactions don't make sense because you have to have a smart human being that's dealing with money. And if you're just doing like a $500 something, you got to burn through a lot of those suckers. Or I just don't know how that works. So that was not our model. We try to partner with great companies that we love and integrated formats. So sponsorships are probably 85-ish% of our revenue. We launched a job board, which is 5% of our revenue. Our event listings and our events are probably 5%. And we launched a membership program that's kind of non-profity and like pretty crappy right now. That's another 5% of our revenue, and that's something that we hope will grow. So that's a little bit about our business model, which I think is interesting. The biggest thing that we learned is thinking about the model up front makes the journalism and the media better, because then you're able, if you're able to generate cash, you're able to retain and hire the very best people. And as traditional media, traditional metro media is and will continue to get annihilated. Most of the annihilation happens from Google and Facebook, and I think the big people that will benefit will be Google and Facebook. Facebook, I always picture, these Stanford MBAs like sitting in a conference room thinking like, why doesn't the HVAC company in Charlotte spend, why are they ever spending money in TV and in print? Our ad products work so well. But the lag is really long. Local media is much more relationship driven. If you think about a sales rep, they may play on the same, like their daughter may play on the same soccer team as someone else. So it's not a mathematical deal, which I don't think MBA style thinking really realizes is that it's a lot more relationship driven. The last item before I kind of talk about our challenges right now and where we would love help is our belief is that useful content wins. And so we try really hard to be useful to people every single day. And the reason I say that is I believe that news falls under kind of the entertainment category. It's like if you have an hour to entertain yourself, you can go to the New York Times, you can watch Netflix or do whatever. And so for us to compete in the entertainment category, we have to be really entertaining and it's exhausting. And so we try to compete in the useful category because people really want to know, where should I go on a date? Where should I send my child to preschool around here? And so like if we can be useful, we will become super valuable to our readers, and they will continue to come back back to us as. And we don't fit in the entertainment category, which is only going to grow and get better and better. But wanted to run you through some things that we're currently thinking, because I always find it interesting to see a startup like in mid-stride. Like we're going to Second City, everybody's stressed out. Like we're running, like we're trying to renegotiate ad deals for 2017. We're trying to grow everything. We're trying to hire people. We're trying to decide what the hell does our org chart look like? How does this all work? I signed a lease. We don't even have a bathroom in our office. So like, I don't even know how to sign leases. Payroll, like setting up 401k, you have to talk to people over the phone. So there's just, I always think it's interesting because I don't believe Charlotte has a lot of startups that are really midstream. And so the those are all the things that we're thinking about now, but wanted to share 4 specific technology-related, basically problems, opportunities, whatever you want to call it, in hopes that one of you guys emails me later with solutions to these problems or opportunities. So the first one is whether we should invest in technology or not. So it was very clear to me early on, we are not a technology company. We're good at producing content and selling stuff. And so we try to invest as little as possible in tech. Also, technologists and technology costs a lot of money. And so for us, it was unfeasible to be a bootstrapped media startup and to own our own tech backend and understand all that. But as we grow, I don't know what to do. So like we're going into Raleigh, and if we go into an additional city or try to go do something national with kind of a Southeast hub, when do we hire a designer and a developer? When do we hire someone that understands technology? That's a really, I don't know what to do there, and I think it's a really interesting position because they're going to cost a decent amount of money because technologists cost a lot of money, and we don't know what to do there, and I don't know when to pull the trigger on that either, because technology is important to us. Or should we always have a technology partner and never think about technology? We didn't grow up, like our culture isn't technology oriented, which may seem subtle and gray and like, oh, culture's not, but that really matters too. Technology's never really been celebrated in our organization, and none of us are good at it. And so to grow that as a competency doesn't seem smart, but to ignore it seems even more dumb. And sometimes you don't know you have a problem until you have a problem. So I'm scared of that too. So when we should invest in technology and what our approach to technology should be, is something that I'd love answers to because I don't know what to do. Second item is how to unlock the wisdom of our audience. We don't have comments because comments are just a pain in the ass, and everyone's like, why don't you have comments? And no one ever normal, like, there's not a lot of normal conversation around comments. But they're difficult to manage. And you've got a bunch of people that, like, you publish something and everyone just yells, and so it's like emotionally distracting too. So we don't have comments, but we do have really, really smart readers. And so our readers read something smart, and then they have no way to contribute something on top of that. And so I don't know what this looks like, but I'd love to run maybe like a poll with like with some type of comment thread, or maybe have a discussion forum for people who we pre-screen as smart and normal humans, or have some type of moderated message board around certain key topics. Message board makes it sound cheesy and crappy. But basically, how do we take, we reach 400,000 people every single month, and they're smart. And how do we take the stuff that they know, because they're going to be smarter than 6 people that are producing stuff. How do we take their wisdom and leverage it and publish it so that we can help people solve problems even better? I think the solution is a technology-oriented solution, but we don't know what to do there. So currently we run polls, and we have a mailbag column every Friday that's kind of funny where people leave feedback. But would love a solution to that. Third item is our membership program. So we have 430 members that are paying $5 a month, or you get a T-shirt if you sign up for the full year, and that's $60, and so you pay that up front. I originally thought that people would want extra content, but I don't think people want extra content. I think what people want, and we just ask people, is they want either exclusive event stuff or exclusive access. And the thing they want the most is ways to save money and experience items. So I think that deals and discounts, I got to get the language right there, but some type of, we have all these small businesses that are interested in working with us. we have this smart kind of tastemaker audience, and how do we connect the two there? A current solution that we're thinking about is having people create cool deals and then distributing that to our members via newsletter and be like, get a free appetizer at this place. And someone goes there and gets a free appetizer. That's the most non-elegant solution to everything, but it's, if you think about it, it's really, I mean, it's really fun. You have businesses that are trying to do stuff, that are trying to reach these people and want them to experiment with different items. But our membership program is something that we want to grow on because diversifying revenue is important, and making a lot of money is important also, because then you can hire the most talented people. But what it means to be a Charlotte Agenda member is something that we haven't really settled on, and we don't know what that looks like yet and how we can offer the most value. And I don't think it's additional stories, which is kind of weird for a media company, because you think intuitively it's additional stories. But I don't know that that's true in local. I think people want other items, and we're in a position of having enough scale that we can offer up those items. So what membership program looks like. And then the last item, maybe this is like a therapy session. I just bring problems in hopes that I get weird emails with people that have solutions for stuff. The next item is our what marketplaces we should play in and what marketplaces we should not play in. So online marketplaces are really fun. Like setting up a job board is really fun. We pay our developer, who's a great guy, maybe $1,000. We set up a form, we process a credit card, and then people apply to jobs, and businesses pay us $200 to post a job. And it's working, and it's a really fun business because you don't do anything except get an email that says someone posted a job. After a credit card, you get $193 that goes into our Stripe account that gets dumped into our bank account. So that's fun. I want to do more of those things. So we've set up Marketplace for jobs because the technology required is not hard. And events, we've set up a marketplace for. So we have featured events, and we're thinking about getting into the homes and apartments area, but then you have to do maps and like all sorts of more technology-oriented stuff. So I'm constantly trying to think about what marketplace businesses we can enter, because that used to be a service that a newspaper would provide. You go online and then everything is, the internet has taken all that business over. But I think there's like this reverse trend of like, the internet is so big and weird that if you have a curated brand that you trust, you can run these marketplaces in a boutique style format and offer a lot of value. So I don't know what marketplaces we should grow and what marketplaces we should not grow. So those are my four issues. I'd love to, instead of me talking about pontificating on media crap, just to talk to you guys and have a conversation or any questions on how we're thinking about things, either from a media standpoint, a business model standpoint, or I guess the business model is the media standpoint, or just from like a startup logistical stuff. I've learned so much about that, and it is a huge pain in the ass to start a business and to do everything right. Like I can't, it's difficult. And then paying taxes is horrifying. Like once you actually, I was talking to our CPA. I say our CPA. So my dad is a CPA and does our tax return. So talking to my dad, I was like, taxes are so bad. How do you make any money doing stuff? And he's like, don't ever forget, it's better to pay taxes and make money than to not make money and not pay any taxes. So I thought that was a good piece of advice too. So any questions on media or startup things? Yeah.
So you guys have grown fairly quickly in a year. And congratulations on that.
Thanks.
What were some of the biggest technology headaches that you had when you were starting?
How to photos was a big technology headache for us. We didn't. Well, some of the items are just because we didn't have any familiarity with them. So photos, we were uploading photos that were too big. It took a while for things to load, and so we separated photos onto a different server than our site. I think I'm describing this stuff well. And we had, so the site lagged a lot. That was probably the biggest technology issue. The things that we avoided were hiring the right developer. So I knew a good WordPress developer that I worked with for 10 years building sites across a bunch of different stuff. And without that, we would be screwed because finding good developers is, in my opinion, impossible. Like they're like gold. And so to have that meant that I was able to eliminate that from the problems and think about producing stuff people look at and selling stuff. And so we were able to do our core competency. But I would say photos, something that we really struggle with. Areas that we're blind are data. We use data for nothing. I just look at Google Analytics for the basic stuff. And SEO, we never think about. We don't think about anything there. So there's probably opportunities in both of those areas. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep. Shoot.
This may end up being a very broad question, so I apologize
Yes.
in advance. But when you were talking about whether you want to invest in technology or not,
Yeah.
it reminded me of an episode that I listened to. It was a podcast called Startup.
Sure.
Have you listened to it?
Yes.
So there's an episode where they spend the majority of it talking about whether they want to be a content company or a technology company. And
Yeah.
for the longest time, he thinks he wants to be a technology company because what he's doing is very technology oriented. But at the end of the day, he decided that he wanted to be a content company because that's what they were passionate about. So my question in this is, what is it that you're really passionate about doing? Is it making money? Is it creating awesome content? Is it building a community? Like, what is it that really drives you and how you think about the future?
We love creating content that helps people's lives. And local is so fun because you get to see people. And it's very different than national. Like if you're going to report on something, you literally run into people in like the Harris Teeter. They're like, I saw the romantic places to eat, and my wife and I went out to eat here. And you're like, that feels good. So like there's some, like that's the stuff that we love. So creating community, helping people solve problems through content is what we love. Now the creating community side, the interesting thing about the technology gray area is that I think technology would allow us to do that better. And so how do we do that? How do we engage the right partner? And then it's so hard because technology is so sexy and like it's just cooler. You can like your company is just different. And so how do we continue to be self-aware that we're good at creating stuff and selling stuff, and we stink at the stuff where your valuation goes up and blah 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 blah. It seems easy from like an academic perspective, but when you're in it day to day, it's very hard to continue to be self-aware and know that you actually, your core competencies are things that anyone can really go copy. We have a WordPress site and a MailChimp newsletter, so like it's not hard. So then you just have to. It's difficult to be self-aware to know that the things you're good at are the things that a market or an investor may not value the same way, or may not value as much as a technology-oriented company. That's a good point. Yeah.
First of all, I appreciate you being so transparent. And I wanted to go back to your team building.
Yep.
What made you know, or what made you, just like you just said, you
Sure.
decided not to get a tech person. What made you think that you needed a team versus doing it yourself? Was it financial, or was it skills, or what was your thought?
I had built a previous startup when I was younger. It was a case competition website to screen as a hiring screen tool. And what I noticed is that when you're successful or unsuccessful, it's lonely being one person. And I love controlling everything and then owning everything. And so, but I noticed, I learned this, without having people as invested as you are, you're limited in the way that you can grow. So it's important to me to set it up in a way where myself and 3 others have an equity stake in the business. It doesn't vest, it's nothing complicated. Everyone owns the business. And so to think like an owner and to give that up I think was a step that I wouldn't have taken if I was like a younger, more cocky self, honestly. And then in terms of intelligence around these people, I had worked with all of them for a number of years, so I knew they were smart, hard-working people, and just high character people. I think the character stuff doesn't get brought in enough because when you're dealing in a startup environment, you know that your job always changes and things like that. And so just to have high character people means that if you succeed or fail, at least it's fun. Like you have to look at the other person and deal with, pain and fun. And so you want it to be enjoyable along the way. But I was able to put together a much better team really because I had a year and a half or 2 years of intelligence around the other humans. And so I think that changed things and has really allowed us to grow. I actually think we're hitting a point where I'm meddling in too much. Our team doesn't have enough freedom. And it's just interesting as you think about an organization, you grow and you start to realize that the people around you are better at you than at doing stuff. And so then it's just a weird feeling. You feel more like a logistical, like a person that tries to figure out the best way to do a 401k. And you're like, oh, that's kind of, because other people are better at me, better than me at the stuff that they're doing. It's an odd feeling. Maybe it's not an odd feeling, but it's just a different feeling. After you start something, you poured your blood and sweat and stuff, and then you realize, well, people are better at it. People like, Katie's writing better than you're writing. You stink at writing. So it's just that was an interesting learning, kind of self-reflection curve too.
That feeling when I have a little sister and she said something smart, and I was always used to being the smarter person, and she's smart, and I started listening to her, and I realized she's pretty smart. And I didn't know that all my life.
I think when you give high-achieving smart people freedom, the stuff that they can accomplish is amazing. When you give mediocre people freedom, everything fails. And so that's something that I don't know how to work with mediocre. It's just we don't have a system for that. Where big businesses have really good systems for that. Like you can kind of have a plug-and-play person that's not that valuable and just kind of shift them around. But and so maybe that's something that we'll learn also is that we have all A+ people, so it makes our business better. But it's hard to grow. Anyways, yeah. Yeah.
Within your area of expertise, how you define mediocre people? What are your metrics to say oh, these guys are not really that good, we should hire them?
Previous work, their ability to bring solutions to market with very undefined stuff. So that's really it. No, we definitely look at who can the hard metrics like revenue and audience growth. So those are two important things. But I think people knowing what the goals are and trying to create solutions to achieve them and then bring those solutions to market is really hard. Most people like talking about stuff. No one brings anything to market, and then no one wants accountability. And I think media has especially been in an odd situation where you have a lot of the decision-making centralized, and so you have a big company, and everyone can kind of be grumpy, oh, I'm overworked, a journalist, blah blah blah, and then you give them the keys, and it's very interesting to see what somebody does, whether they get overwhelmed real quick, because it's easy to be a grumpy worker. It's very hard to go lead in undefined markets and to bring something to market that people connect with. That's how we define that. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about audience development? How you grew and
Sure.
built your base?
So it was really important to me personally to succeed or fail in as short a period of time because I had a child and I needed to make money, and so I was okay failing, but wanted to minimize that window to a 6-month window, and so we didn't do anything gimmicky. We didn't buy any lists or go give away a free thing and like sign up people outside of the Panther Stadium where they don't know what's happening. So my thoughts were, if we don't hit revenue targets and we don't grow our audience, that's cool. Like, we suck, and let's go get jobs. Like, we're all smart people. Hopefully people would have hired us for different stuff. So it was really, really cutthroat only because of my life situation. But the audience development, and so to answer your question specifically, is we didn't think about it at all. Either we're going to be good enough to produce stuff that people find value from, and we're going to send a newsletter that people share with people, or we suck and we need to go get other jobs because we're not good. And our team was able to put together a winning formula, which was important. But it was.
Is it a double opt-in process?
It is, yes. So we had a form on the site, and it would actually, for the first 6 months, the form would kick to my email instead of basically like, then you get a MailChimp thing and like you go. It would kick to my email because I wanted to scrub any type of bot sign up things, and I also wanted to like get a flavor of the people. Maybe this makes me sound psycho, but I wanted to like get a flavor of the people who were signing up, whether it was Gmail handles or like Roadrunner handles, what businesses they were in. So I would psychotically look at all of those emails and then literally upload them all. And so it was a horrible process because it would take me time. And then we switched, and now it's much better, and I don't look at anything.
Do any research on those people now that we have?
No, I mean we could get creepier on everything when we just don't, and it's just, we're not going to be creepy. We send out a survey and ask people like who they are. The creepiest question we asked was household income, and we noticed our audience is a lot more rich than we thought that they were, which is a good problem to have from an advertising standpoint. But that's it. We don't do any weird tracking or anything like that. And I know that I've been in that world, and it's amazing. Yeah.
Sort of an audience style question. Do you have a sense of who your audience is in terms of culture or demographics? And are there other audiences in Charlotte that you want to expand into?
In terms of geography, our audience is very centralized. So it's like it's what you think it would be like the South End, Plaza Midwood, and so we don't cover those items. In terms of wealth, we skew wealthier, which is kind of odd because I always think we're like producing stuff for like a hipster in Plaza Midwood or something. And I think we have a large following in like the Myers Park area. So to answer your question, I know everybody's, and then we ask how 94% have graduated from college, 35% have graduate degrees. So we really want to focus on, and 74% are 18 to 44. So like we try to hit that young, social, smart crowd. I feel good about where we are now. I think we need more African American voices. I think media needs that in general. I don't think we do a good job representing different races and culture around Charlotte, and that's such a big part of Charlotte. Not even like the feel-good side of me. The money-making side of me is like, if we don't reach the African American and Hispanic community in Charlotte, I mean, those are two ginormous markets. We like reaching smart people, so I hope to always reach smart people and not produce things for dumb people. But hopefully that answers your question. I should have a better answer. I want to have a better answer of like who our core.
Well, specifically, like you guys obviously cover real estate development and businesses and politics.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you want to get more into that, or you like where you're at?
In terms of coverage topics, we want to cover things to do, be the best in Charlotte, careers, be the best in Charlotte, fitness, be the best in Charlotte. Everything else, we're okay, kind of getting better and better over time. As traditional media gets worse and worse over time. So they'll fire people, and everyone will be stressed out. They'll be producing things for the internet that aren't that smart, and so we'll grow every single day. But to do investigative stuff, hard news stuff, requires really smart people. And being a bootstrap company, we can't go hire a bunch of those people right now. We have to wait for kind of the revenue to shift over. So we want to be around the problem-solving stuff, things to do, careers, and fitness is just a big category that health, fitness, everyone cares about, but nobody really talks about. Shoot.
How do you approach the scalability when you look at trying to go into a new market where a lot of your intelligence is? My perception is your intelligence here on the ground, and that's hard to scale.
You know, the most important decision we made was that we wanted to scale. So I think that was a big decision.
How did you choose Raleigh over Atlanta, Nashville, Greenville, South Carolina, Columbia?
Andrew grew up in Raleigh. I liked the population size, and a lot of our advertisers made North Carolina were the same decision makers for the state. And I like going there when I go there. But we felt, and it's a smart population, and there's good startup stuff. It's like WRAL and the News and Observer, and WRAL like owns everything. So you really only have one. You have the Indie Week, so we just felt like it was the right type of population. But overall, it was gut, and the fact that Andrew was from there. And
Will it be Raleigh specifically? Raleigh-Durham?
it will be Raleigh specifically, but we will cover a little bit into Durham and other things like that. How we're thinking about scalability is more from a human perspective of we need to find a leader there and probably a sub or like a junior leader. So we want it to be a completely separate and have those people who are much smarter than we are at deciding what's cool in Raleigh and what's not. They decide everything. So they have a lot of freedom. And from the revenue side, we would continue to funnel everything through Charlotte. And so so we would try to do bigger revenue deals. Because when you go to these companies, spending a lot of money at one time really matters. It's like if we're going to do, a $10,000 deal, like that's not worth the time of a media buyer at a Fortune 500 company. So you actually have to go in with big plans, and until we hit a certain scale, we can't go in with larger plans. So we really want to centralize the revenue function, but the editorial decisions decentralize as much as possible. But it's a weird feeling, and I think we're going to learn. I think it's going to be the biggest decision was whether to do it or not, and then when we do it, can we pull it off? Because I think it's going to be 2 or 3 times as hard as Charlotte, even though we already have a property here, we already got the tech, blah 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 blah. But doing it is really going to be hard, and different types of muscles than we've developed here in Charlotte. Yep.
I was surprised to hear that you're trying to get feedback from your readers when you have such a strong social media presence. I thought maybe you'd be getting feedback on Twitter and Instagram.
Oh, we get a bunch of feedback. It's just how do we take the best feedback and organize it into a way that people can look at it and get value from. Feedback is not something we have an issue with. It's how do we organize it in the best way. So basically, how can we have a topic of where to send my son to preschool, and have it be kind of a crowdsourced answers from different perspectives, where you can look at something and take 5 minutes and help you make a better choice about it. It doesn't seem. So that's the way that we think about it. Feedback isn't the issue. It's how do we organize it in the most valuable format. Yeah.
Are you using Snapchat or Periscope or Facebook video for some of your
We've experimented a bunch with, so to answer your question, yes to all of those. We've delayed video and prioritized Raleigh because video is tricky. It's tricky to make money off of. I don't know how to make money off of it locally. I know how to make money if you're BuzzFeed and you can do whatever. But we don't hit the same scale, and so it'd have to be like a boutique type play. And doing video well is really, really hard. We experiment with Facebook Live a decent amount, just because Facebook's shooting it up the algorithm right now. What does it feel like? How talented are we on video? I thought I would be good on video, and then I suck. And so we're more in the experimentation phase, and we will be for the remainder of 2016, and not really double down on it. Snapchat is something we will get very aggressive on. And going into a second city allows us to be on the radar of these corporation stuff, because they're trying to figure out news too, because everyone wants you on their platform. If you're in Charlotte, nobody cares. But if you could be a solution to local media, people want to like people to experiment local after you get the Refinery 29, Vox, Vice, BuzzFeeds. Then you look at like, okay, well, how can we get like the local feel? So Snapchat will become increasingly more important. Video, I think, is extremely important for us. It's just so hard that we delayed it because we don't have a good way to make money off of it.
The Snapchat strategy, will it be brand specific, or will there individual contributors do it, or kind of all of the above?
Our first, it will be our brand. And the second key decision I made was Katie Levins is much better at this stuff than I am, and so she will lead everything there. But we're very much in experimentation. We have no Snapchat strategy written down. So we're very much in the experimentation mode. But that's a category that local media is they're just way behind. It's just not way behind. Maybe, well, yeah, they're way behind on different stuff. And so it's an area for us to really grow our brand because everybody's there. It's just a question of the trade-off, like us then trying to convince local HVAC company to do a co-branded Snapchat video with us. They're like, so it's just tricky and everything is related. Yep.
Have you ever found it difficult to manage the balance between the business side of the application or of the company, selling sponsorships with the journalism side?
So we honestly have a pretty big church and state type for only having 6 people sit there. We naturally gravitated towards that because otherwise you can't be a media company of consequence and not have a certain separation. We could have gone the other route. I actually think people are so local or so interested in certain things local, you could literally have everything be paid for on the site and you could still generate a lot of traffic. But we have a very clear church and state separation. So Christina's in charge of revenue, Andrew's in charge, and there's no, other than us sitting at the same table, there's no overlap there. I honestly thought there would be more drama, and there's just not. And I think it's maybe something with the type of content that we do. We don't do a lot of investigative stuff. It's like even if we wanted to go investigate Bojangles' hiring practices or something, we don't do that type of stuff. So maybe that's made it easier is because we don't do a lot of investigative pieces. And we also try to, one thing that we are really positive, we're too positive, and that's just because it's weird being mean online. We've written, not mean, but I'm thinking of restaurant stuff or don't use this business type stuff or this business stinks. And beyond just it just feels funky. Then you ruin somebody's life and you see them and people. So local is just weird. We found that we try to celebrate or we try to write positive stuff on the stuff that we like and just ignore places that we don't. And so then it makes us look like everything is paid for because we're typically this restaurant is so great, da 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 da. So we err on the good side, and it's are restaurants just paying you to do stuff? And restaurants are a category that we don't like because they typically don't they don't have a lot of money and they're stressed out and want to be hands-on, and we cover them a lot. So it's a long answer to your question of we have not seen any drama. We have a separation that really works for us. And we will probably see increasingly more drama over the next 5 years as we become a more serious news organization. And with that drama, I think it's important that we diversify revenue so that we can go burn anybody at any given time. So we only had Ortho-Carolina as our sole source of revenue for the first 8 months or 7 months. And so that just stinks from a business standpoint. But we had set it up like that because we didn't want to think about stuff. So now we're diversified enough of we can go torch anybody at any point. Not that we like torching people, but there's no longer a worry. Our brand is now more important than money from any individual client. So if you take the long-term view rather than a quarterly earnings or even working for whatever, we're much less stressed out, I would argue, than other media organizations. but these things aren't new either. Like everyone deals with them. It's just weirder because we're younger and it's just weirder.
Since you mentioned you didn't write something down, so what did you write down? Did you do the business plan and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we didn't write Snapchat strategy down. So we have, I have a working Excel spreadsheet of all of our revenue and expenses. I try to do fancy stuff, and I'm like, I don't even look at it. And we also try to have very broad goals and not too many lockdown plans, because I actually think there's value in not having that much of a plan. So we have increased options. I love optionality. Like I'm huge into optionality because there's value in that. So we don't have a formal business plan, and we also didn't. We've never had to pitch anybody. We don't need any money. We don't want any money. We don't want investors. We don't want. So we've never had to be formal like that. But everyone has clear direction, and we know our financials well because we're investing in hiring people or technology investments, things like that. Yep.
I think one of the hard things when like growing a product or a company, you start, especially you guys have experienced tremendous growth, and once you start to get feedback from your users or your customers, like it can be sometimes I think it can be hard to avoid having knee-jerk reactions to things that you hear.
Yeah.
Have you guys had any knee-jerk reactions to feedback over the past year?
I think that we will get better. I think it's made us nicer and a little more scared of certain topics, candidly, because everyone just yells at you if you're a media company. Like, no one's like, that article was pretty nice and may help me make a choice, 2 Fridays from now. Like, so everyone just yells at you. And then I think Twitter especially is very weird. I think that it's a very weird, it's not very weird. It's a great service, and it's also like the grumpiest, most anonymous, trolly people. And it's so intimate that you just look at something and they're like, you're an idiot. And so like there's a certain intimacy with Twitter that's different than like even getting an email. I don't know, getting an email that you get yelled at feels better. But I think that's we also just have people that have been on the internet a while. But it's emotionally taxing to get yelled at every day, 20 times a day. And especially some of the yelling's good. Good. It's like, I have this nonprofit, I'm saving lives. Why aren't you interested in this? Why won't you put the event up when you have like 20 beer events up? And so, some of it's not just like you stink. Some of it's really emotional to like not help somebody's nonprofit because you know that that's a worse thing for the long-term goals of your company from even a mission standpoint. So, and you don't have time to explain any of that. Nobody cares. And everyone's like selfish with their stuff. So that's a long way of answering. Yeah, it's terrible. And I think going through it will get better and better, because then we'll just brush it off. We get yelled at 20 times a day. Okay, whatever. It's a normal Friday. Yeah. Yeah.
Give us an example of like a bad mistake you guys made, what you learned from that mistake.
We did. I wanted to make more money at one point and put up a paywall. And so we had this paywall plan. We had a cool logo. It's the Agenda Edge. And we were going to put stories behind a paywall. And we would have these meetings, and we had kind of had all it mapped out. And I could tell everyone was kind of scared looking at different stuff. And we were supposed to launch it on a Monday, and we had like a newsletter, blah, blah, blah. And I think at the end of the week, we all just looked at, or maybe I called up Andrew. I was like, do you think this is going to work? He's like, no, I don't. So like it was one of those things where we had spent a lot of time. We did it for the wrong reasons. We did it to make money. Not we. I wanted to do it to make money. And so I learned that we're not going to win if we do things to make money. Other companies can, I think. It's just weird being in media. Like, you really have to be mission-oriented. And people can feel that. Like, you can, it helps with sales too. So like that was a mistake that we made by trying to lead with money first and not having really candid enough talks early on. We wasted money with the design and setting up the infrastructure to roll that out. Yeah, I think that was that's an example of a mistake that we made. Yeah.
We were talking about Charlotte, the local media, not in the advertising.
Yeah.
So, being a relationship area.
Yes.
And the readership wanting fewer stories, more useful information. Do you see the move into Raleigh, still Raleigh as a relationship-oriented city as compared to maybe a transaction-oriented city, a hustle like Atlanta?
So when I say relationship-oriented, I think that sales are relationship-oriented in local media. Not really talking about anything reader-oriented. So I think the buying and selling of local media is a lot less mathematical than national media. So because you have fancy agencies, everyone's calculating all sorts of stuff, and local, there's a lot more emotional buying. I would argue, why are people on TV so much? Because it's cool, and like no one's looking at like our Instagram videos may get more get more views than some TV morning shows here, but that it doesn't compute in people's minds. There's something good about that. So I think that as we grow as a media company, we want to be able to back up. We want to have the best relationships with our clients and be nice, transparent people. But if we can't prove with math, if we can't quantify how we helped a business's brand grow and reach a certain demo, we will fail in our ability to scale and our ability to win. You can win some ad deals like that, being a nice person and not, but you can't go and compete and win TV and print ad dollars if you're not going to come in with quantifiable ways that are going to solve a marketer's problem. So hopefully that answers your question a little bit. The reader side is very different.
There seems to be less margin for failure now, even though you have a good relationship with the client. The ad dollars have got to return to something.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think the big winner of all of this is going to be Facebook. Their ad products are really good and they work really well. So sometimes it scares the hell out of me a little bit, is that we don't compete in that world. We try to compete in the brand advertising world. But Facebook is going to dominate, is going to crush local TV and local print and even local radio. And sometimes these local media companies aren't gonna know it. And you're gonna be putting yourself, so it's weird what is happening and what's about to happen. And I think Facebook will be the biggest benefit. Cool. Anything else, or?
Have you looked at any of the gimmicks, like the Facebook 360 visits?
I look at gimmicks all of the time, and I get excited for like a half a day because I want to be so gimmicky because there's so many ways we can juice all of our stuff. And then I tried to trick Google with an internship site one time and did this SEO trick where we basically created a bunch of thin pages around different cities in the United States and then a bunch of thin internship listings. And Google, it got a gazillion views, so fun. And then 3 months later, they rolled out some panda or penguin, and then we got delisted from all of Google, and there was no business. So I love all of the gimmicks, and well, I don't really, but looking at them, everyone wants shortcuts and everything. I want shortcuts in all sorts of stuff, but it will not work. There are no shortcuts to media, is my belief, and it is terrible in terms of the work that you have to do to grow a media brand. But it's really fun, enjoyable work. So I evaluate every single gimmick. I know more about any media gimmicks than anyone in this city, and we continue to not do any of them because it's not in the best long-term interest of our company. But damn if I'm not tempted. We've even built stuff. I even built like a newsletter, like a weird newsletter sign-up thing. You know, you like hit people over the head with like the sign up for a newsletter. It works. More people sign up or whatever. Nobody likes that, you know. And so, but I spent time building it out. So I get to the very edge of the gimmicks, and then I realize it's not that cool. All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. My email address is ted@charlotteagenda if you have any answers to any of our problems or anything else. Thank you.